Hi, this is vlog number 26 of my path to trying to achieve a double body weight squat. So a little bit of a recap of where we were last week. I'd just welcomed the arrival of my second daughter. So she's now about 2.5 weeks old. So very, very newborn. And I just kind of talk about some of the challenges or effects of having a newborn. I'm going to kind of reflect on that a little bit more today, some more specific. So just to kind of go through the strength side of things really, what I'd seen just before she arrived was I was actually getting some progress. I'd flatlined for some time, and then just as she was arriving, I started seeing some real progress, and I spoke about last week about that as I think frustrating might be a bit of a strong term, but kind of, just a bit of the irony of all the time spending trying to get improvements, and then the kind of the biggest kind of hand grenade can go off, which is having two kids. But this particular graph shows you what's happened in the period of time just immediately afterwards. So that red line there you can see basically highlights the kind of the 10-day gap when no training took place when she was just born. And then that first, so you can see that peak I just achieved just before that red line starts, and then the after the red line there's a pretty big dip. Not a dip relative to where the journey started, definitely, but compared to where I was the 2 weeks beforehand. But the real positive, the real pleasing thing I can see now is within a week of coming back to training, and I got to say the first session back was brutal. It was like I thought I'd never trained in my life. It's getting back there, so the strength numbers are getting much closer. In fact, if we go to the next graph, the evidence is I've gotten a little bit stronger, which is really pleasing to see. So we've got a couple of bits of information here on this graph. So this is comparing. The red line is a set from yesterday with 120 kilos for 5 reps, and then the blue line was the equivalent set from the training session just before my daughter was born. They look pretty similar, but there's a couple of things I'd like to just kind of reflect on. First of all, rep number 2 from this week was actually the fastest rep I've ever performed with 120 kilos. That I've recorded, obviously, and they may have done it in years gone by where I wasn't recording things like that. Now, the best barometer I've got, other than doing a 1RM test, is how fast I can move a particular weight. So the fact I've set a personal record in terms of how fast I can move 120 kilos, that's the biggest indication yet that I've improved in strength. And the other thing that I got from that particular set yesterday was it was the highest average velocity for the whole set. So repetition 5 there was at 0.39 meters per second. So the whole set was an average of over 0.4 meters per second. Now I've done some sets before where I can barely get above 0.3 meters per second. So that's the biggest indicator yet that I've seen an increase in strength. So the positive news is that's the green light, I think, now to add a little bit more load. So it's only going to be a 5 kilo increase on that work set. So it'll be 100, 110, 125, and then just see what numbers that churns out. But yeah, that was really positive. And a week ago, I would not have even thought that was possible. And I wasn't expecting it either. I think I was expecting a much tougher road back to strength than I've seen. I think I've got some issues on work capacity still. I don't think I can do as much training as I was before. And I mean, I'm on a disturbed sleep pattern, so there's a rationale for that. There's a reason behind why my work capacity may not be great, but ultimately I'm judged by one method and one method alone, which is my max squat. So if that's going up, I can't have too many complaints. Just to think about the next barometer, which was power. This was a nice to have but not a need to have, and that's kind of picked up again as well, so that's trending on the up. So yeah, given the fact that I'd had 10 days off training, the emotional roller coaster which is having a second child, and the lack of sleep that comes with that, I'm really happy with that. I really couldn't ask for much more. But every silver lining has a cloud, to kind of to paraphrase Femi saying. What's actually happened over the last week is a pretty sharp incline in body mass. Although there's a little bit of a trend down at the minute, but it did kind of jump up, which was, I'm not sure concerning is the right word, but just something to be aware of. And I thought it was something to explore, really. I thought it was something that I could really hopefully try to explain a little bit better, as to not to excuse it, because I'm not doing that anymore, but to understand it a little bit better, and then to try and be a bit more informed about how I move forwards. So, a little bit of a lecture. I don't listen to this, but I just want to kind of, for anybody out there that doesn't really know, or I've maybe gone through this and seen that weight gain, or isn't really sure as to why what's happening is happening, I thought this might be something that could be quite useful. So, the science behind the dad bod, of which I am a key exponent of. So the first thing I want to kind of get across is, it really is all about sleep. I don't think anybody's in delusions of why sleep's important and how sleep's important. Anybody's had a bad night's sleep knows kind of the knock-on effect for the next day. So I'm not really going to go into too much, but what I really want to kind of show here is this: sleep comes in waves and cycles. And the thing about sleep is not necessarily how long, but it's how deep, and how many times you're deep. So wave goes in, like these wave-like cycles of sleep during the night, and you go from like relatively light sleep to deeper sleep, and then back up again and back down again. And basically, it's the number of times you can get into deep sleep that has the biggest effect, because that's where hormonal changes happen. That's where we have release of all these different hormones that have a really big impact on what happens to us during the working day the next day. So there's a couple of different things about hormones that I'll talk about. And again, this is just a surface touch on it. So the physiologists amongst us will be having nightmares about this, but it's just a light touch, really. So first of all, some anabolic hormones. Those hormones that are responsible for increasing muscle mass, muscle protein synthesis. So things that make us better, basically. And if you don't have great sleep, you don't get those sleep cycles and don't get to like stage 4 deep sleep, you have decreased testosterone hormone production. So you don't have any of the good stuff that's going to make you better. Unfortunately, what also comes along with that is catabolic hormones, things that break down, stress hormones, things that kind of... And you need some of this. This is definitely kind of something that everybody needs a bit of, but only a bit, not a huge amount. And having kids is stressful. Not only do you get increased cortisol because of lack of sleep, but every time your baby cries, or you have stress because they won't feed or won't burp or whatever the stress they cause you, whether it's kind of late nights out when they're 18, I'm sure the parents of all the kids will know as well. Kids cause cortisol. They just do. They're the best people at it in the whole world. And so combining with a lack of anabolic hormones, you have this increase in catabolic hormones. It's basically stripping muscle from your body. That's what the effect of that is going to be. That's part number one. So we've got this hormonal shift that means we're going to be having less muscle tissue. Not great for strength and not great for body composition. And then the real kicker about that one is also in that kind of deep sleep, we have some regulation of appetite hormones. There's two particularly, leptin and ghrelin. So leptin is the appetite suppressing hormone, and we have less of that. And we have more ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. So actually, we are predisposed to eating more food if you have poor sleep. So we've got these two different mechanisms at play simultaneously. One is killing our muscle tissue, and one is kind of basically driving us to eat more crap food. I say crap food because anybody that's had poor sleep and feels tired, you don't crave broccoli. You don't crave cabbage or vegetables or anything that's good for you. You crave sugar and caffeine. So basically that diagram I've showed you about me was basically fueled by eating lots of chocolate, because that's what people just dropped on our doorstep, because we had a baby and people like to bring gifts in, and really happy and grateful with so many people in our lives that that do give us gifts, but yeah, they just dropped chocolate on our doorstep, and I'm hungry because I have a shitload of ghrelin, I don't have enough leptin, and I've got a lot of cortisol, and I don't have a lot of sleep, and my dopamine levels are low because I'm not sleeping, so I'm just going to bang, 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 just grazing chocolate all day. And that's what happens to your body weight. You lose muscle, you gain fat, and you get the dad bod. So that's what the skinny fat dad bod is. Changing hunger hormones means you're predisposed to eat more food. You're going to have like pleasure-seeking foods, things that are going to give you that dopamine response to the brain, that's going to give you that kind of light turning on moment. You don't have the anabolic hormones to produce new muscle, and therefore you get skinnier and fatter at the same time, which is just crap. But I said it's not about excuses. I'm not saying, right, that's inevitable, that's going to happen. It's about how do you combat that? How do you get past that and not let that dictate over? So how to combat the skinny fat dad bod. So my plan A was pretty much the plan that's going to work for me still. It's just much, much harder to adhere to. There's lots of things that are going to get in your way. So have a calorie goal. Be realistic. Again, this isn't the time to have extreme calorie deficits, to try and knock off 500, 600, 800, 1,000 calories a day off what you need. Just be kind of mindful of where you are in the world at the moment. It's a survival until the baby starts to sleep better. So just keep around your basic metabolic rate. Even if you're trying to train, you can have more than that, maybe 10%. And just try to keep on an even keel, because if you're hungry, it's not going to work well for you. You're just going to eat shit. What is in the diet also helps as well. So having a high protein diet is going to be the key. It's going to stimulate some muscle protein synthesis, so you're going to kind of try to combat the lack of anabolic hormones. And also, it's more filling. You're going to feel fuller for longer as opposed to the high sugar stuff. Keep up your weight training, because again, that's going to promote muscle protein synthesis and combat some of the lack of anabolic hormones you're going to have. And the last thing really is just about kind of being honest with what you're eating, what you're putting down your throat. So put here the kind of log all foods in MyFitnessPal. That's what I am trying to do. Because if I'm kind of manually typing into something that says I've written 3,500 calories today, like I have to physically do that. I have to log everything, and that kind of puts you off eating it. So it's just those psychological tools that help you stop making some not silly mistakes, because they're understandable mistakes, but mistakes that can be avoided with a bit of kind of awareness and mindfulness about what it is you're actually doing, and just becoming more aware of the situation. Okay, you don't need food, but your brain and your hunger hormones are convincing you otherwise, and that's just something trying to get out, avoid. So that's where I am. Hopefully this time next week I shall have some more progress, and I've had some kind of success in fighting off the dad bod.